Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. All the football you love in one place. Across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
It is Thursday evening on Off the Ball. John Giles is with us as always. Evening, John.
Evening, Nathan.
So it's going to be Liverpool against Real Madrid in the Champions League final. No shortage of drama once again. I don't know if they were the two greatest matches of all time, but they certainly gave us plenty to talk about, particularly with Manchester City. Yet again, no Champions League for Pep Guardiola, and I don't think anyone saw this coming as we ticked towards injury time, that somehow City would blow it again. How did they blow it?
Well, they conceded a couple of goals, Nathan. One from a free kick in the closing stages to see the match out. But it should have been over before then, Nathan. I mean, they had enough of the ball to score more goals themselves. And it was, well, it's what football is. You know, Real Madrid never gave up. They kept going. They got the goals near the end, then got their penalty. It shows you how it can change and change so quickly. But it's not the first time they've done it, Nathan.
No,
it's Paris Saint-Germain. They did it to Chelsea. It shows the spirit they have, particularly at the Bernabeu, to come back and compete. So I think Guardiola has no complaints about it, really.
Manchester City have invested so much since Pep Guardiola arrived at the club, and listen, they've got the reward with 3 Premier League titles. They've been an outstanding force in English football over the last 5-6 years, but it did feel as though the European Cup, the Champions League, was the holy grail. To be that close and to not be able to see it out, how much that can you put on Guardiola?
Well, the manager always has to take responsibility for the results. If they win, they win. But I don't subscribe to that, Nathan. I mean, you can get a bad break during the match. Team can play well. That's football, and they should have had it won, and they didn't. But that's football. You know, Real Madrid came back at them and scored the goals.
So you don't think it's some deeper psychological...
Nathan, I don't subscribe to it being the holy grail, to be quite honest. It's the big competition. But if you look at last year, Chelsea won it last year. Were they the best team in the league or in Europe? I don't think so. But, that's my take on it. But everybody wants to win it. Obviously, it is a huge competition. But now I'm only talking for myself. But when I played, I'd rather win the league where you had consistency week in and week out to do that. Whereas you can lose matches, a lot of matches in the Champions League, as you can in the league itself. But if it's competitive, you can't lose too much. But you can still qualify from the group in the Champions League. So people are saying, well, he won't be a great manager till he's won the Champions League. But people forget he won the Champions League twice with Barcelona. So, again, you go back to Chelsea. Chelsea won it last year to beat them in the final. But were they the best team in Europe? Were they a better team than City? I don't think so. I mean, it's a disappointing result, don't get me wrong, for Manchester City and Guardiola not to go through to the final or to win it, indeed.
So do you think they played well over the 2 games against Real Madrid?
Not particularly. I didn't think they played all that well last night. I didn't think they played all that well in Manchester, in City's ground, losing the goals that they did. I mean, people were going mad about it. We talked about it at the time, Nathan. I didn't think it was a particularly good match. There was too many mistakes in it to be a great game. Okay, it was exciting because of the goal element, but they did lose 3 goals in Manchester, and looked odds on to do it last night. But that's the way it works.
So what was it then last night, John? And listen, they're playing Real Madrid, they're playing one of the best teams in Europe, and it's not as if it's a bottom half of the Premier League side where they're just going to dominate possession and create chance after chance during a game. What was it, say, last night that City did that wasn't as good as it could have been?
Well, they didn't take their chances, Nathan. Even in the second half, and they were a bit unlucky. Grealish had a good shot in the goalkeeper, he stood to it. They looked to be well in command at that particular time till the last minute or two of the game, which can happen. In other words, you can talk all your day. Did they take the chances? They should have scored. No, they didn't. So they left themselves open to not scoring the goals at the end, where Real Madrid came really good and scored a couple of good goals and then got the penalty.
Did he make a mistake taking De Bruyne off?
I don't think that was a mistake. No, I don't think that was the cause of the situation. I didn't think De Bruyne was playing particularly well anyway, Nathan.
Yeah.
I honestly think De Bruyne is an overrated player. He's a very, very talented individual. But there was a ball to him yesterday that when somebody knocked it past and he's turning around and shaking his head at it. I don't like that attitude on the pitch. He's very talented, but I don't think he's regarded as the best midfield player. I don't see it that way at all. But I don't blame him. I don't blame him for City losing yesterday. But I don't think he was playing particularly well, Nathan. And it looked like they were looking to close the game out. I don't think it would have made any difference had he been on the pitch. Let's put it that way.
And I guess when you are judging greatness, and I think in fairness you've been very consistent with that criticism of De Bruyne and his attitude throughout the last couple of seasons. But Champions League semi-finals, second legs, they're the games where you decide on players' greatness.
Yeah, well, you get the big games. What I don't like about him is his attitude. He seems to be very cranky if somebody makes a mistake, and he doesn't dominate the games. And I think he can do a lot more than he does. I mean, if you take Modric yesterday, again, for Real Madrid, I think he's, 36, 37 now. But that's the attitude you're looking for. You see Modric in every match. He never gets onto a teammate. He gets on with the job, does his best all the time. I always think he's a bit finicky.
De Bruyne,
Nathan. I don't think he puts his heart and soul into the team. And that's what great players do. That's what makes them great. I don't see him doing that. He gets a bit cranky. He doesn't like it. He doesn't fancy it. There's always something there,
After they concede the first goal, in a way, listen, it's easy to say in hindsight, it felt inevitable that Real Madrid were going to go and score again, but I would have thought a team with all of Manchester City's experience would have known how to just settle things down. It almost felt like they kicked off too quickly after Real Madrid had scored the first goal. They ended up giving the ball back cheaply. Listen, it was a brilliant cross in from Carvajal for the second Real Madrid goal. But it did seem as though they'd entered full-on panic mode. Like, is there something you can do as a team? Is that where leaders come to the fore, that they settle it down, they know how to get through the next 2-3 minutes without conceding again? What do you put down the quick concession to?
Well, you're absolutely right. You have experienced players who read the situation, But the way it looked to me watching it, I couldn't see it coming, Nathan. It came so quickly. You know what I mean? Like, City were in charge. They missed a couple of chances themselves to really put the game beyond, and it didn't happen. So I don't think they had time to say. It wasn't as if Real Madrid were attack after attack after attack. It seemed to come from nowhere. So they didn't have the warning signs that you sometimes get, where they miss a chance and then you've got to tighten it up anyway. But they didn't look like scoring. They weren't as if they were dominating City, that City could say, well, we've got to get a grip of this. It came out of the blue, which is good for Madrid. But again, it's not the first time they've done that. So City should have been warned of it. But there weren't any warning signs, Nathan, that say they missed a good chance where you can get a grip of it. Like, it just came from nowhere. And good luck to them. They never gave in and they kept going and they kept going. But I don't think there was any sign from City to say, look, we've got to get a grip of this now because they've missed some chances. It happens. It's football, Nathan. It just happens, It shouldn't. You should be covered all the way. City weren't. They were taken by surprise, I think, with the finish that Real Madrid had. And that's it. That's the way I see it anyway.
So you don't subscribe to the theory or the questions that are out there then around how this tarnishes Pep Guardiola's legacy or the questions about his greatness as a manager because he hasn't won a Champions League with Manchester City?
No.
It's just one of those matches.
I don't subscribe to that at all, Nathan. You know, like the old saying, to the winner the spoils. And that's what happens in football. You know, when a team wins, whether the critics or whatever we want to call them, will find a way to tell you how they won. And when they lose, it's the same thing. But you have to look at the game overall, or the two legs overall. I mean, City missed chance after chance in Manchester, don't forget, where they could have finished it off anyway. And they were looked to be in a comfortable place yesterday. So if the manager wins, say they didn't score the 2 goals, well, you'd say, well, Pep is a genius. And when you lose, he's a bum. That's the game. That's sports generally, Nathan. And sometimes they're not the genius, and sometimes they're not the bum. You know. But that's the way it works out. That's the way people see it.
They are obviously still right in a title race with Liverpool, and it's a huge weekend. Liverpool playing Tottenham on Saturday night, and then Manchester City against Newcastle on Sunday. I know you've spoken about this before, about trying to overcome disappointment quickly. Like, they somehow need to be able to put this past them and behind them by Sunday. Is that another giant test of character of this squad? Oh yeah, it always is, Nathan. You know, like if you win. I'm only going on my own experience. If you get a good win, if they say they won the end, what you're worried about for the next match is to keep that attitude. It's always the next match, Nathan. You know, if you win, it doesn't mean you're going to win the next match. If you lose, you're not going to lose the next match. You know, at that level, you have to be up for it all the time. I mean, I as you know, I played in a team with Leeds where we had some shocking results, and then you have to come back. You have to come back the next week, you know, and because we did win, we won 2 league titles and those 42 matches, which is a lot to do. But we also lost in the cup to Sunderland in the final. They were in the second division team. You know, it happens. But over a long period of time, no matter who the team is, you'll have disappointments that you just have to get on with the next time. That's what makes you champions or top teams. You're never all that confident going into the next match. If you win 6-0 the week before, Nathan, you still think, right, we have to do that again. Your attitude has to be right. You have to be up for it. I think City were up for it yesterday. I don't think they were taking it easy or not playing it. They played well. They could have had it won in the first leg. They could have had it won. They missed their chances, and Pep would be a hero. That's the way the game works. All our football coverage is brought to you by Sky, and you can watch Manchester City against Newcastle on Super Sunday. It's live on TV, only on Sky Sports. So Liverpool through to a Champions League final, 3rd time in 5 years under Jurgen Klopp, looking to win the trophy for a 7th time. Did it the hard way in the end against Villarreal with the comeback from the Spanish side. A level at half-time, Villarreal 2-0 up on the night. Were you worried for Liverpool in any way at half-time?
Oh yeah, the way Villarreal were playing, I mean, they played Liverpool off the pitch, really. With their attitude, Liverpool were giving the ball away. They weren't playing well. They might have scored more goals, but as I say, it's a game of 2 halves, and the second half was a different game altogether. I think it's very, very hard for a team like Villarreal to keep that momentum, Nathan, and play as well as they did in the first half. I mean, if they were that good, they'd be up there with Liverpool and Manchester City and all the top teams, you know? But they did it for 45 minutes, and that does happen. They put everything into it. But as far as the game is concerned, once the second half started, Liverpool got a grip of it and never lost it. And Villarreal went totally out of it after that.
And in that first 45 minutes, did Villarreal identify a weakness in Liverpool that Tottenham can expose on Saturday night, that other teams can expose for the remainder of the season, that Real Madrid can expose in the Champions League final?
Well, you can learn from it, you know. But you'd also have to look at the second half where they went to bits, Nathan. First half they did everything well. They got into the City, didn't give them any room. Liverpool didn't give them any room. But to be fair to Liverpool, and not be fair, I mean, they didn't play well themselves. they gave the ball away, and which is very unlike them to do what they did. Now Villarreal made it difficult for them, but they did cause their own problems by giving the ball away and making it easy for them. So I'd say Klopp at half-time went crackers with them, and the second half it was the Liverpool that we know and admire that they got a grip of the game, and they finished easy winners in the end, Nathan. Because it's I know it's an old saying, it's a 90-minute game, but the first half they were very, very poor. But it's played over 90 minutes, and they played exceptionally well to get back into the game and then to win the game.
An area they really struggled in the first half, as you say, uncharacteristically giving the ball away so often, was in midfield. And Naby Keita was getting a lot of the criticism, but Thiago, who has been outstanding over the past 5-6 weeks in particular for Liverpool, also just so many uncharacteristic simple passes straight out of play. Was that just the Villarreal pressure that got to them? What was your sense of why Liverpool just couldn't grab a hold of the ball in that first half?
Well, it was 50-50, Nathan. They did put them under pressure, but you'd expect Liverpool to be able to handle that, and they didn't. And that's why obviously Villarreal got on top. But again, it's a 90-minute game. It was a different Liverpool in the second half. And I say Klopp went mad at them at half-time to get a grip of it, which they did, and it can happen. And they got well on top and finish up easy winners in the end, Nathan. That's the way it goes. Now, it definitely, they shouldn't have started the way they started. It was poor. But when you have a manager like Klopp, he got a grip of them at half-time. There's no doubt. I'd say he went mad at them in the dressing room. And then they played like themselves in the second half, which was good, really good, to finish them off.
One of the big changes with Liverpool over the past, maybe even the past season, is the depth that they now have. That he can look at the bench at half-time in the Champions League semi-final and think, I've got players here who could come on and improve. And while Jordan Henderson did come on eventually, it was Luis Diaz who he turned to in place of Diogo Jota to slip in for that second half. I was almost a surprise that Diaz didn't start. It's quite incredible how quickly he has managed to settle into this Liverpool side.
Yeah, he's a top player, Nathan. He's coming into a good team, which is also always a help. But he has the ability to do it and the confidence to do it. And if you look at Liverpool, you've got Salah, Diaz, Mane, Jota, Origi when they need him. I mean, there's no other team. If you look at City, for example, they don't have any one of those forwards. Any one of those forwards. So they're deadly. In midfield, they could do with, say, Graham Souness. Graham Souness was a great player, because any game he could get a grip of it and control the midfield. I don't think Liverpool have anybody like that. I think Thiago has been the nearest to it in recent times. But if you look at him at the weekend, I mean, I've never seen Graham Souness playing and play the way Thiago did in the first half when you need to get a grip of the game. I don't think they have anybody in the middle field to really do that.
Surely Graham Souness had a bad 45 minutes at some stage.
Of course he did, but not. I mean, if you look at what Thiago's doing now, I don't see him when he played well to ever as play well as Graham Souness did.
Right.
Of course, Graham Souness had times when he didn't play. We didn't play well in every match.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of his game, he did play up to those standards. And Graham had a good football brain. When you're playing in the position that Graham is playing in, you have to notice, this is not good. We're not getting a grip of the ball. We're not doing this. We're not doing that. And you have to have somebody there to do it. I have to see Thiago do it more now when he's in that position, Nathan, that he has done in some matches. He's been really good at stripping the ball in that. He didn't do it the other day in the first half. But I think, generally speaking, Graham Souness did it 90% of the time, Nathan, when he played, getting a grip of the game and read the game when it was needed to do what had to be done.
Yeah.
He could sense that and do it, and had the ability to do it.
The final then, Liverpool against Real Madrid. Do you think Liverpool will be happier having Madrid instead of Manchester City?
I would think so. Well, if I was a player playing for Liverpool, I'd rather play against Real Madrid than City.
Why?
I think Liverpool will be odds-on favourite, Nathan. I think they first of all, it's out of the Bernabeu. stadium, which obviously has inspired them even all over the years, and especially this season. This is on a neutral ground. But I think Liverpool will have too much for them.
All right, we'll have loads of time to build up to that over the next month or so. I did want to talk about a couple of the other stories in the Premier League and talk about Leeds, because Leeds supporters are always interested in what you have to say. And Jesse Marsch came in and they went on a run. They were unbeaten in 5 going into the match against Manchester City. Lose 4-0. Burnley go on this remarkable run since Sean Dyche left the club, and Everton get a victory against Chelsea. So suddenly Leeds are right in the relegation mix. They're on 34 points alongside Burnley. They're 2 ahead of Everton, but Everton have a game in hand, and Leeds next couple of matches away at Arsenal, which we'll have live here on Off the Ball on Sunday, home against Chelsea, and then they finish at home against Brighton and away against Brentford. Watching that performance, listen, it is against Manchester City, one of the best teams in the world. Watching that performance from Leeds at the weekend, are you concerned about what the next month might bring?
Yeah, I'm very worried about them, Nathan. I think the results around them have gone very, very bad for them. And as you say, they've got two hard matches, really on paper anyway, coming up. But what got me a little bit concerned was the attitude and the words from Jesse Marsch after the game, Nathan. He actually said it wasn't a 4-0 match. This was a loss, but in many ways I feel like it's a win. You know? This isn't me talking, he's saying, to the supporters, the fans. I'm calling it as I see it. But you know, they got a hiding. I mean, they were beaten 4-0. And, you know, he's on about the first goal shouldn't have been a free kick. But they didn't have to score from City didn't have to score from the first free kick, or the second was a corner kick that they lost. But I can't understand how he can say it didn't feel like a loss. It felt more like a win. I mean, you're beaten 4-0, and you're coming into big matches now. So I don't get that. You know, I mean, if you think that felt like a win, well, what does it take to feel like a loss? It's just unrealistic. And I don't know what he's talking about when he does that. So, like. This was a big defeat for them. I mean, Manchester City gave them a hiding on the day, and I just hope it improves because, as you pointed out there's 2 big matches coming up, and I hope they can do their stuff to keep out of relegation. But I'd be more worried about his remarks from that match going into the next 4 matches, Nathan.
He said at 1-0, 2-0, if we could find a way to get a goal, it could have been different. And they did have chances even when it was scoreless and there was one cleared off the line, I think, when it was still 1-0 at that stage. So from what you're saying, while there were, you know, some positives that he could look at, the fact that they're conceding simple goals from set pieces is far more worrying heading into the final 4 games than any of the positives you can take.
Well, you're always looking for positives, Nathan, but you have to be realistic. That's what I'm saying. You know, if you're looking at it in a way that you've got you know, okay, they had 1 or 2 chances, but in the end they finished 4-0. It's a hiding. You can't be saying, well, it felt like more like a win than a loss. When you're beaten 4-0, you know, you have to be realistic. You have to look at the situation and say, well, you know, we've a lot to do. That was a bad defeat for us. We didn't play as well as we could. We lost 4 goals before going into these next matches. You can't just wipe them away. And say, well, I didn't see it as a 4-0 win. It was a 4-0 win. So I'd rather than be realistic and say, well, we have a lot to learn. That was a bad defeat. We should have done better than we did. It was a home match, although it was against Manchester City. And be realistic about it. Because there are big matches to come up, Nathan, and they're in a very, very difficult position. I hope they get out of it, because as you know, I've played out for a long time, and the supporters are great supporters. I hope they can do it, but I'd be more worried now about the situation than I was a few weeks ago.
Who do you think he's making those comments for the benefit of? Is it for the supporters so they don't get downhearted and so they stay with the team? Is it for the players so that, you know, they accept it's Manchester City, it was always going to be a tough game, and that, you know, they stay confident and keep the momentum that they had built heading into the Manchester City game? You've been a manager, you've been a player. Yeah. Who do those comments benefit?
I hope it was for the supporters and that. And not himself, Nathan. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're beaten 4-0, you have to look and say, that was a hiding.
Yeah.
We have to do something about it. You can't say, well, like, I don't see it as a hiding. I see it as a plus. Like, I don't think you can approach it that way, Nathan. Now, maybe it's to keep the supporters on side. I don't know. But I looking at it realistic, I'd rather hear the manager say, well, we got a lesson today. We have a lot to learn, and that wasn't a great result by any means.
Like, it does read when he talks about that the scoreline was worse than I wanted, but the performance was better than I wanted.
Yeah,
that he had set the team up quite well, actually, and against Manchester City they performed well. And the scoreline, well, listen, if you'd seen the game, you'd know that I didn't do much wrong. Yeah. Be realistic about it. Don't be, because he's the man in charge now. He's the man that's got to keep them up, and he's got to be realistic with them. Now, whether he was saying it for the right reason and go into the dressing room and say, look, lads, that wasn't good enough, but I don't get the impression that it was. I think the way he said it was he actually believed it. And that'd be the worry. Because in football, like any thing in life, you've got to be realistic. You've got to realise now that was 4-0. We've got to hide in that. What can we do about it? What can we do to put it right? That's what I hope he'd say, rather than I hope he doesn't believe that this wasn't a defeat. It was more like a win, because you're going into two big matches now, and if you're not back to reality, I'd be worried about particularly these two matches coming up, for them keeping up. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they win the next two matches. I hope he was doing it for some reason that I don't understand. And comes out to win the games. That's the most important thing. But I don't see it that way at the moment. It's obviously impossible to predict what will happen, and Arsenal are fighting for a Champions League place, so that's going to be a hugely difficult game at the Emirates. After that, it's Chelsea, Brighton, Brentford, three teams with nothing to play for, and it does feel as though Chelsea, while on paper is a very tough game, that they're sort of on their holidays already, so maybe there is an opportunity over those games as well. The difficulty is that it feels a lot of the best players are either injured, and like it was a horrific injury Stuart Dallas endured at the weekend, or either injured or just not in form at the moment.
Yeah, well, the injuries are especially to Dallas, has been a big player for them, Nathan. And the other player got injured before the match. Cooper, I think, he was a big player. I mean, that's what's happened to them in the past under Bielsa. Those two players and Bamford. Bamford was out as well, and they don't have the resources really. Leeds, they haven't spent a lot of money on players, Nathan. That's why I thought Bielsa wasn't very well treated. Anyway, but that's another day's work. I just hope that this guy can get them fit, get them up, and keep them in the Premiership. That's what I hope for. But I'm more worried now than I was a couple of weeks ago. That's for sure.
Yeah, one of the reasons is that Everton finally got that win against Chelsea. They have seemed to have gone with a different tack. I saw Jamie Carragher going into it on Monday Night Football, that not playing it out from the back quite as much. They've been a bit more direct. They certainly seem to be a bit more physical and getting a bit more stuck in the last couple of matches. The Merseyside derby, they made it very difficult for Liverpool, a right old scrap. And likewise against Chelsea last weekend, Goodison Park was rocking and never gave them a second on the ball. They do seem to have that little bit of energy right now, Everton, that you need in this sort of scrap that maybe Leeds don't have.
I think they've got better players, Nathan. I think Everton have got into a situation where that when you look at the players that he has at his disposal, now he's only just in, he's only learning from it. But I think if you look at the teams, or the players in the teams, I think Everton are way ahead of Burnley in what they've got in talent and Leeds. And it's a question of, because he's only come in, it's very, very quick time for him to come in to change it that much. But that was a big plus the other day. And I think Everton will get out of it. I think they have the players, better players than Leeds and Burnley to get out of it, Nathan. That's the way I feel about them at the moment. That's why I think Leeds are in bigger trouble than they were a few weeks ago, because I think Everton will come back.
Will Lampard have done a good job if Everton survive?
I think so, Nathan. Because I think we've spoken about it before. When you go in as a new manager, you need a certain amount of time to find out who is who and what's what to do it. And I think he's had that time now, and I think Everton will get better.
Right. Well, Everton up against Leicester on Sunday. They've got Watford, Brentford, Crystal Palace and Arsenal to go between now and the end of the season. So there'll be plenty to chat about, no doubt about that, John. Great stuff as always.
Thanks, Nathan.
John Giles with us every Thursday night and all our football coverage with Thanks to Sky. Don't miss Manchester City, Newcastle, Super Sunday live only on Sky Sports.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch Everton versus Brentford on Super Sunday. Live only on Sky Sports.